Hi, this is Graphically Alex coming at you with all things fat related. If that's something that interests you, please subscribe. I'd love to have you. I like to visit More Than Tracy T every now and then. Miss Abby. Not her podcast, though. Her podcast is this absolute snooze fest. Sorry, that was shady, but I just have to be real. It's really, really, really boring. Like, I think if I ever react to her podcast again, I'm probably going to need to, collab or something with somebody because I just can't do it. It's so boring. Anyways, as far as her TikToks though, I do like to check them every once in a while, and this is something I've noticed. It's the idea that body positivity is dead, it's over, all these different things. I told you guys I had seen a lot of articles about that, and it doesn't surprise me that Abby is covering it. So I want to hear her take. I'm going to be reacting as she goes though, because this one is like 4 minutes, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. We're just going to go. So let's do this.
With the latest Lizzo stuff, I've been thinking about the reversal on body positivity and how people perceive body positivity now as an infringement on their free speech, essentially. And I think that's where a lot of the hatred toward it comes from now, because you see these people being and they forced us to never say we want to be skinny and never care about our health, and they wanted us unhealthy. It's all this idea that you were being forced to whatever. And I understand where that comes from, because I think with a lot of social justice movements, language is a part of it. So, we're going to ask you not to say a slur. We're going to, look down on people who...
Well, when it came to you guys saying obesity is a slur, that was just very astroturfed and nobody really agreed. There are plenty of fat people that totally disagreed with that. You guys just said that. I was fat and I disagreed. I'm mid-sized now. I still disagree. It's not. You guys tried to... I think it's difficult because she's conflating body positivity with fat acceptance, right? So I'm already seeing there isn't much of a deviation in what she's saying. But fat acceptance very much policed if people lost weight or not. They still would. They just don't feel like they're socially strong anymore. So a lot of people in fat acceptance have fallen away, But they feel kind of outnumbered, and there is a backlash to fat acceptance currently happening. Because, yeah, when you don't allow people to have their own thoughts or to bring up questions or to ask things, and you try to control things, typically that control doesn't last and it leads to a backlash. And she's being well, we asked you to. No, maybe you did, Abby, but not the rest. Okay. There are plenty who were very aggressive within fat acceptance.
Say, things about bodies that are negative or whatever. There are consequences. If you say something wrong, you will get judged and maybe even canceled. Not that that's a real thing, because it's not. We've seen that time and time again. I think Amy Schumer's continued presence in pop culture is proof that there's no such thing as a cancelable person, period. I used to think it just didn't apply to white men, but no, it's at least also white women, for sure. Anyway, I think the reason that body positivity...
I just don't... To me, it's... I think it's, again, I don't think this necessarily applies to Abby. You have to, I have to remember, and I think we all have to remember that people are still individuals within fat acceptance, so they're not all exactly the same. But I think many within fat acceptance, they just could not stand any disagreement whatsoever. They could not handle it. And I think it was especially, I think it was especially hard for them to reconcile people who are very big or who were very big, who were against fat acceptance as well, or who are to this day. And I think that they just couldn't stand it. They couldn't stand it. And it showed. and people are tired of it, I don't necessarily see this huge, like, we wanted to be skinny the whole time and screw you and whatever. I don't see that much. I just see kind of like this one article where it was just this Gen Z girl. She's like, wow, she's like, it was just a lie. It was only a lie. And it's like, it's just kind of a flat statement, which I think that's probably more true. Like, I think a lot of people within fat acceptance spaces or like around it or within body positivity, especially a lot of women, they felt kind of silenced and shut down. And these women don't want to be silenced or shut down anymore. And you don't like it. And they're going to say that and they're going to have that kind of reaction. And it's like, if they felt that way, they felt that way. I didn't personally feel that way because, again, like, good luck. You know, I'm just going to say things anyways if I want to. But yeah, with a lot of people, they were sick of it.
Has been sort of associated with this like censorship of speech, or like, you're not allowed to say this. You're not allowed to say.
Well, it's not even just that. It's like, you're not allowed to think something about your own body, which is not, it's just kind of weird. You know, it goes into like 1984 levels. Like, I try on my channel, I always say, don't obsess over your body. That's different. Don't fixate on it. Don't put too much emotion into it. Because if you are struggling with E followed by the letter D, that's a part of all of them, is being obsessed with how you look, being obsessed with the emotions that you're creating around the way you look, particularly in terms of body size, especially, and, you know, mostly, honestly, within E followed by the letter D, it has to do with your actual weight. That's not a good idea. But like I said, you're gonna have feelings every once in a while. It's just a difference between looking at yourself being like, I look snatched, or I don't look good today. For me, I'm in the mids. I'm mid-sized now, which according to people like More Than Tracy T shouldn't be possible. I'm going to throw some shade. I don't know if she is a set point theory girly, but I wouldn't be shocked if she was. But anyways, when I look in the mirror, there are days when I'm like, I look snatched, days when I look in the mirror and I'm like, I look busted. It's just a constant thing. But you can feel that way, but then you just let it pass. And you just let it go, and you don't think about it the rest of the day. You're not like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. You don't do that. And you don't like have an anxiety attack over it. You don't do these kind of things because it's just, I look the same as I did yesterday. I look the same as I did the 2 days ago. You know, it's like, it's not that drastic. So it's kind of fake. So you have to kind of understand you're kind of faking it a little bit. And that helps. That can keep it from being too wild. But to say to somebody, oh, you can never criticize your body, or oh, you can never feel negative about your body, that leads to a sort of suppression, and it's just not, it can also cause another fixation. You can become too fixated on it either way. And when you are doing that, there's a very fine line between obsessing about how much you love your body and obsessing about how much you hate it. It's a very fine line. I suggest just not obsessing, period. It's okay to care about it. It's okay to look at it, but it should be one aspect in a series of other things. Not the most important, not the highest on the pedestal, not something that you're always thinking about every day, all the time. That's not okay. But if it's just something on your list of important priorities that you're looking at, okay, that's normal, you know, and that's okay. And I feel like fat acceptance and body positivity, to a certain extent, demonized that. And I think a lot of women, a lot of young women and all this stuff, they were irritated by that. It's irritating.
to be thin, you're not allowed to whatever. Like, and people feel the suppression of that because, of course, their true feelings are that it's better to be thin. And maybe that's because we all live in a society that actually does tell us that and has from the very beginning, but that's neither here nor there.
Oh, gosh. Maybe it has to do with the fact that it's healthier to be within a certain weight range.
Point is, like, people feel this, like, oppression of censorship. They feel this, like, burden of, like, having to police what they say and, like, watch what comes out of their mouth. And they perceive that as, like, either an injustice or, like, denying the real truth. Like, it's a lie. We need to just be honest.
Like I said, you would even push it to you're not even allowed to have a thought about your own body. That's too far. That is excessive. That is a huge excess that you are not acknowledging.
Say being fat is disgusting and unhealthy and bad. But it made me realize that what pushed the body positivity movement forward was people not wanting to be called fat, because fat was like this horrible insult that was lorded over you all the time. It was like this bomb that anyone could drop on you at any moment. And while I believe the solution to diffusing that bomb is to not give that word so much power beyond just being like a description, for a lot of people, they like felt that they needed a positive way to describe their bodies to protect them from the hurt of being called fat, or to protect them from the fear of becoming fat, which of course never went away. But for a lot of people, like, body positivity did at the time feel like a breath of fresh air. And now it feels like a breath.
I think personally, body positivity started at its core. It's, to me, in terms of fatness and body positivity, I think the intention at first was the idea that you should live your life even if you're fat, which I think was a good starting point. However, there's a fork in the road. You can live your life and go further and further into a disorder, or you can live your life and figure it out and eventually get healthier and get out of the disorder, you know? Because either way, a lot of people within body positivity, they struggled with some kind of at least toxic ritualistic mindsets, at least. So when you're trying to let some of that go, it can, you know, like I said, I noticed in a lot of people it either got worse or it got better. Body positivity was just too nebulous, in my opinion. It was just too blah, and it didn't really lead anywhere. It didn't go anywhere. It just said, don't be like this, go out and live your life. But then what? That's the problem I have with it. That's especially looking at it in retrospect, because all that happened is that vacuum, fat acceptance came in and took it over. And that's all that happened. And then it just became horrible. And here we are. You know, now there's a backlash against it. So that's my version of events.
Breath of fresh air to people is they feel like they've had this like this crushing weight on their chest of like, you have to make sure you say the right thing all the time. And now the breath of fresh air is like, fuck this all, I want to be skinny, it's better to be skinny. But the only reason that body positivity was so disingenuous is because it was created by a bunch of people who just didn't want to be called fat because they were so afraid of being fat. And so they had this idea that we can fix it with the language we use to describe bodies, right? If we are polite, if we don't say fat, if we say curvy, voluptuous, like luscious, stretch marks are just tiger stripes, then we'll feel better and we won't have to have fat lorded over us all the time, because we'll just call these
But
terms.
it's still, I kind of agree with her a little bit. It's still a fixation upon it and drawing attention to it and obsessing about it, which is an issue. It's an inherent problem within it because it doesn't actually change your brain or change the way you're thinking about it. You should be deprioritizing it. You should be de-emotionalizing it, understanding that something like weight is something that changes very slowly over a course of many days, weeks, months, and in some cases years. And you just kind of live your life, you know? I think that's breaking out of the bad mindset, because as I said earlier in this video, it is ridiculous to act like you're shocked every time you look in the mirror. It's stupid. It's not real. It isn't real. And if it's something like you are very big and it really bothers you, you can do something about it. But you have to like stop freaking about where you're at. You have to bring the anxiety down and stop fixating on it, because it's not the only thing about you. That's not true. And that was, in my opinion, the positive part about body positivity, is it encouraged you to be more of a whole person from a fat person's perspective. So I would say, yes, lean into that, but your health still matters, and you need to get to a normalized weight on either end of the spectrum. It's important.
Something positive, actually. But they never addressed why they were afraid of being fat. They never addressed whether fat could indeed not be a bad thing. Like, we never had a mainstream moment. I mean, maybe like to some.
It's always going to be somewhat of a bad thing, because to be obese, for example, because it causes a lot of health issues. It causes them, and it also puts you at risk for some, and it exacerbates others. It's not good. You can't call something like that good. It's never going to be good.
Degree, but like, body positivity never really said, hey, what is so bad about being fat? Like, what if you could be fat and still be all these other good qualities? No, they just said, you're not fat, you're beautiful, you have such nice curves. Like, they just found different language. It was all about the language. It was all about the packaging. And of course, body positivity in its modern iteration is a social media centered movement, is an advertising centered movement, was in large part spread by advertising in the late 2000s and early 2010s. So of course, it's all about the packaging. It's all about the language. It's all about people just wanting to feel attractive and like they're not fat, and fat is inherently unattractive. We didn't go deep enough to like sort of dismantle that whole thing, because that would require dismantling beauty as a hierarchy, which would require dismantling capitalism and white supremacy, and nobody was really truly willing to do that. With the latest
Beauty doesn't exist without capitalism. That is stupid. But like I said, she's just trying to shoehorn her little political girly pop moment in there, which is not helpful at all. All I can say is, I think Abby is trying to blame body positivity for her own movements. Very obvious, very blatant failures. And I wonder if that is why a lot of those articles are coming out. It's a lot of people within fat acceptance trying to cope by talking badly about body positivity, which again, I think body positivity it's overrated, but it's not as bad as fat acceptance. So that's my stance on it. I think that it's more about all that, basically. It's about their own failure. And like with most things, they can't take accountability, which, as I said, I don't care that they can't. I hope they continue to fail within fat acceptance. I still worry, though. I don't feel like it's done. I have a feeling it isn't done. And I'm hoping that I'm wrong, but I might not be, I don't know if this is going to be that easy. So I worry about the end of the year. I feel like it could shift again. So hopefully it doesn't, but if it does, I'll be there. I will. Anyways, you guys, I will talk to you guys again next week. Have a good rest of your day, night, etc. Peace.